simultaneously working on setting up climate action labs as a platform for climate action. The spotlight is on him now. Put your hands together as I welcome and invite on stage Mr. S. Rajan Mehta. Everybody, give it up. Come on. Very warm welcome.
Thank you very much. Just a small correction. My name is Rajan Mehta, not S. Rajan Mehta. Good evening, everyone. And I'd like to say a thanks to NRDC for inviting me here this evening. They asked me to talk on the science behind climate change. And I have around 10 to 15 minutes, so I'll try my best to do justice to it. I'm sure all of you are aware about climate change because nature has been ringing its alarm bells every so often by way of heat waves, droughts, excessive rainfall, floods, landslides, and the sea level rise. Now, all these are manifestations of climate change brought around by global warming. And just to take a glimpse of how climate change can impact our personal lives, let's take the case of the rising temperature. Because of the rising temperature, our glaciers are melting faster, and all this water is getting into the oceans, raising the sea level. And if just two of the large glacial systems that we have in the world, which is Antarctica and Greenland, if these two were to melt, the global sea level will rise by around 210 feet. Imagine that. Most of our population globally lives in coastal areas. Most of our cities are on the coast. Imagine them 210 feet deep in water. What will happen? The land area will shrink. People will migrate. Our habitable land will reduce. People will also migrate from areas that are becoming excessively hot and arid, therefore further reducing the inhabitable area that we have. And it's not only people who will migrate, animals will migrate as well, because they need a comfortable place to live as well, a conducive environment. Now, when this happens, the proximity between people and animals will increase. And there are certain diseases called the zoonotic diseases which transfer from animals to people. The incidence of these diseases will increase. Then there are a lot of animals, bugs, insects, birds, rodents, which so far haven't come in contact with humans. And as the proximity increases, the chances of these kind of animals, which are called reservoir hosts, will increase. And they carry pathogens, viruses, which we humans don't know as yet. What havoc they can do to our bodies, we don't know. What pandemics they can create, we don't know. So the bottom line is that human health will be a victim of climate change. Another system that will get impacted is our food system. Floods, droughts will definitely impact our crops. Our crops will also get impacted because of new microbes stepping in. The nutritional composition of food may change. And then food sellers, which store our food, will also come under threat because of floods and heat waves. So we need to watch out for food. Another system that will come under threat is our infrastructure. As floods happen, storms happen, our bridges, roads, buildings will come under threat. So overall, if you see, human welfare will be challenged. And the four most visible things are human habitation, human health, food, and also our infrastructure. Now, why is this happening? What is the cause of climate change? If you look at the climatic history of our planet, then there's nothing new about it. Our planet has been going through these cycles of being very hot and then very cold. and back hot again. And this pendulum that kind of goes on is driven or influenced by two natural cycles. One is called the orbital cycle, and the other one is called the carbon cycle. The orbital cycle is influenced by the revolution of the Earth around the Sun and also its rotation around its axis. And it has multiple levers, but I'll talk about two. One of them is called the Earth's eccentricity, which means that the trajectory that the Earth follows around the Sun changes from being an absolute circle to becoming elliptical, and this change happens every 100,000 years. When the Earth is closer to the Sun, it becomes warm. When the Earth is away from the Sun, it cools down. The other lever is called the Earth's obliquity, and as you would all know, the Earth rotates around its axis, and this axis is tilted, and the tilt varies from a minimum of around, I think, 21.6 degrees to a maximum of 24.4 degrees. When the tilt is the minimum, summers are very short and winters long, and when the tilt is at the maximum, it's the vice versa. Now imagine a combination where the Earth is away from the Sun and the tilt is the minimum, which means that the summers are short. So what happens is all the snow that falls in the winters does not melt in the summers. And over a period of time or over centuries, the snow or the ice keeps accumulating, dragging us into an ice age. Now the opposite is also true, which means that when the Earth is very close to the Sun and the Earth's axis is at its maximum, then the summers are very long and the heat is the maximum. So all the ice which has accumulated during the ice age starts melting, not immediately but over a period of time, and drags us out of the ice age. So this pendulum kind of keeps going on, and which is responsible for a part of climate change. The other cycle is the carbon cycle. The amount of carbon in the Earth's system is fixed, and it keeps moving between the atmosphere, the biosphere, which is the flora and fauna, the geosphere, which is the Earth's crust, and then the hydrosphere, which is the ocean. The flora and fauna die, and when they die, they decompose, and when they decompose, some part gets into the ground and over centuries converts into fossil fuels, and some part decomposes and gets into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, and there are, in addition to carbon dioxide, other greenhouse gases as well. Now, when the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is low, the Earth is cool, and when this concentration increases, the greenhouse gases form a kind of a blanket around the Earth, and this blanket works almost similar to when we take a blanket in winter. When we take a blanket in winter, it doesn't bring heat from anywhere outside. What a blanket does is it makes sure that our body warmth does not escape the blanket and keeps it within the blanket and therefore keeps us warm. Similar phenomenon happens in the blanket that is around the Earth as well. And the way it functions is that the Earth receives most of its energy from the Sun, and this energy comes by way of sunlight. Now let's say if we are receiving 100 units of energy from the Sun, 30 units get reflected back into space right away from white surfaces, because white surfaces reflect light away. So surfaces like glaciers, clouds, white sand help us do that. And it's only 70% of the energy which kind of reaches our Earth, and probably God uses it to do his daily affairs. But at the end of the day, every object must maintain its energy balance. Right? So at the end of the day, whatever is the excess energy in the Earth, that is radiated back into space by way of infrared rays or thermal energy. So you see the difference. When the Earth is receiving its energy, it comes by way of light. But when it's throwing that or putting that energy back into space, it goes by way of infrared rays or thermal energy. Now, when these infrared rays are kind of leaving the Earth, atmospheric gases like oxygen and nitrogen allow these infrared rays to pass transparently. But greenhouse gases, which is carbon dioxide, methane, nitric oxide, and many other trace gases, they start blocking these infrared rays. And they block them because of their atomic structure and also because their electrons, the frequency of their electrons matches with the frequency of the infrared rays. So kind of resonance setting. It's a phenomenon very similar to, in high school physics, our teachers always told us that when a column of military people or group is walking over a bridge or marching over a bridge, they are always asked to break their steps, because otherwise their steps start resonating with the frequency of the bridge and the bridge can collapse. Right? Same phenomenon or almost similar phenomenon is happening in the atmosphere as well. The electrons of these greenhouse gases start resonating, get excited, and instead of letting the energy or the heat pass out or into the space, they start reflecting it back. So that's the blanket that I was talking about, and that's how the energy is kept within. Now, the question that arises is that if climate change is a natural phenomenon, then why are we worried? Nature will take care of it. But this time it's different because we humans have entered into the race. And through our actions, especially ever since the Industrial Revolution, we've been putting so many greenhouse gases in the atmosphere that this blanket that I was talking about, which is composed of the greenhouse gases, has become very thick and is containing all the energy within. And it's that energy which is causing global warming. And it's the distribution of that energy around the globe which is causing climate change. I think my time is over. Thank you. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer that. Sorry, is there time for questions?
Well, in case you have questions, you can please scan, the QR code, which is on your badge. The questions will be reflected on the preview monitor.
Any other? All right, thanks very much. Can you repeat that, please?
Particulate matter.
Oh yeah. So, particulate matter in the atmosphere is largely responsible for air pollution, right? And there are complex phenomena through which they do impact climate change as well. But one impact which is very visible is particulate matter. If it's dark and goes and settles on white surfaces, it reduces their reflectivity, and those surfaces start absorbing heat rather than reflecting it. So that would be one of the impacts.
I am Anita Gupta. I'm Head of Climate, Energy and Sustainable Technology from Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. So very nice way of explaining the science behind the I completely echo. My question is like, India is at critical crossroads where we have to strike a fine balance between economic progress as well as environmental sustainability. So what messages for Government of India in terms of prioritizing actions for next, say, immediate goal 2030?
I think, ma'am, what you said is very true. Many developing countries, it's easier said than done that take steps now for climate change. Just to give you an example, If you look at India's revenue or the government's revenue, even today, 18% of it is coming from fossil fuels by way of customs duty, cess, etc. Now, if the government was to give up fossil fuels, they will lose 18% of the revenue. Losing 18% of the revenue is not easy for a government. How will they meet their other expenses? So these are kind of challenges to be met. But since you asked me for a message, if you see over the next 50 years, 60 years, India will be probably one of the largest consumers in the world of any development material that is required, whether it's cement, it's steel, it's consumer products, machinery, anything. Because we are a large country, we are a country aspiring for growth, and we are on that path. And we cannot give up that path. So our challenge is, how do we turn towards a green economy, right? And the message is that really we should look at it as an economic opportunity and not as an economic burden, right? Because we should be actually doing the research and development here to develop new systems, to develop new technologies for clean energy, to develop new systems for decarbonization. And because we have such a large domestic base consumption, we can build competency and then even take it out to the world. So I think that's where the focus needs to be, I would say. Does that answer your question? Great. Thanks very much. I'm sensitive about the time, but I'll be here for some time. If there are any questions, happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, sir. That was indeed very interactive, insightful, and apologies for the name fail. Like, usually I'm better with names, but I think I need a refresh. Thank you for your understanding. Well, yes, as sir mentioned, sir is available offline off stage for you all. If you still have some questions, some queries, you can definitely connect with sir. Mr. Rajan Mehta, thank you once again. All right, with that, ladies and gentlemen, for a final session of the day, we delve into a discussion on bridging community needs and government action in the face of rising temperatures. It's time that together we welcome our speakers for the same. Ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker, who is an award-winning actor, green entrepreneur, founder of One India Stories, UN Environment Goodwill Ambassador, and United Nations Secretary General's Advocate for Sustainable Development Goals. Put your hands together for Dia Mirza. Okay, everybody is looking at me, but I am also wondering where is she entering from. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and give it up for Dia Mirza. Such a pleasure to have her here for our forum this evening. Very, very warm welcome. Yes, please join us on stage. Please have your seat. The center one. Yes. The spotlight is on her now, definitely. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have another speaker for the session. Former member of United Nations Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change 2020 to 2023. She is from the Khadia tribe in Orissa, India, working at the intersection of indigenous peoples, youth leadership, climate philanthropy, and biodiversity conservation. Put your hands together for Miss Archana Soreng. Very, very warm welcome to you, ma'am. And I love the fact that since the beginning, when I started the day, she's constant with that broad smile on her face, which the rest of my audience, they're not. I was about to ask people, hello everybody, but I am sure that nobody is going to revert to me saying hi. Hello? Oh, my luck. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Next, our moderator for this session, Sarah Jacob, who is an independent journalist, France 24. Ladies and gentlemen, she has covered health, environment, and gender issues for years at NDTV. What a lovely moderator we have. Finally, for the final session, we have women power in the house. All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's a reminder for my audience that in case you have any questions for the panelists, don't forget to scan the QR code which is on your badges. Over to you, Ms. Sarah.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. What a fabulous afternoon it's been. So many fantastic sessions, but is Delhi feeling warmer for all of you? This is a question for all of you who've traveled from other parts of the country. I've met a few earlier today. I shouldn't have worn this jacket. I feel that it's just getting warmer. Are some of us already sleeping with the air conditioners on at night? Okay, you can speak louder. You won't be judged. Maybe by Dia, because she's a Mumbaiker. Also, any Alfonso mango lovers in this crowd? Well, I have some bad news for you. The Alfonso mango season, yes, has been delayed. This was in the papers today. It's a 35% drop. And according to the papers, as Mr. Rajan Mehta just talked about, today's papers say that the Hindu Kush glaciers are melting at an accelerated pace. And that means this is going to be critical for South Asian countries that depend on glaciers for their irrigation, hydropower, and drinking water, which includes us, that's India, of course. So clearly, everyone, the heat is on people. And the question now is how can we, amidst this rising heat, build climate resilience for all? How do we find community-led and nature-based solutions to the extreme heat that we are all living in? And we have Apna Sarang already been introduced. Dia Mirza already needs no introduction, UN Environment Goodwill Ambassador who wears very many hats. But I want to start with talking about climate justice. We've been talking about climate change all day, but climate justice may be a new term for some of us in the audience. So if we could just start off with the both of you, we could kick off this session by talking about what is climate justice and what does it mean to you?
Hello. Johar everyone. It's an honor to be here and thank you for having me here. Climate justice for me is something which I see that now, as all of you have been discussing today itself as well, is that indigenous peoples, Adivasi communities, local communities are the lead contributors towards climate action. It is only now and even in the IPCC report recently in 2018 that we have seen this narrative has been strongly recognized. But if we see it from an historical perspective, the same our way of living, the traditional knowledge and practices, the community-led forest protection practices were looked down upon, and we were termed as savage and backward. And that is why I feel for me and for us, climate justice is about undoing and rewriting the narratives of how indigenous peoples and local communities are leading climate action and how they need to be an integral part of the decision-making processes, which is how I also frame that indigenous people and local communities should not be victims of climate policies, but be leaders of climate action. And while saying that, I would also like to add climate justice for me is also recognizing the land tenure of indigenous people and local communities, because 80% of the world's biodiversity is protected by indigenous people, even when they constitute merely less than 5% of the world's population. And it again brings back to this entire narrative of if their land is not recognized, they are in the verge of eviction, displacement, forced migration, which is also we are being talking about how communities when migrated to cities are again further vulnerable to global heat. So I would like to summarize this entire sharing of means climate justice for me is recognizing the role, leadership and worldview of indigenous people and ensuring that they are at the center of decision-making processes. Thank you.
Climate justice should be part of everyone's vocabulary.
Most certainly, but I think it's important for people to understand what climate justice is. And so much of what Archana said is true. But it's also recognizing the fact that climate justice is social justice. And, when we think about children's rights or women's rights, at the center of that is climate justice. And I think the very glaring evidence that a vast majority of the world's population that has had absolutely nothing to do with creating this triple planetary crisis is unfortunately confronted by the harsh reality of the crisis unfolding, and they are hit the hardest. And they're described as the most vulnerable communities or the people living on the front lines of the crisis. But this is people living amongst us in our cities, in our towns, in our villages. And India is one of the most harshly hit countries and will continue to be hit very hard. So I think it's important to recognize that when we speak of climate justice, we're speaking about every individual and every being that is being hit hard by the crisis, and how protecting those rights is so integral to social justice.
If I can play devil's advocate, I'd like to ask you both. You talked about recognizing the problem here. So we're no longer living in an age, perhaps apart from a certain US president, where we are skeptics of climate change.
And many of us.
We accept that this is real. So we have policies in place to tackle climate change. So what are we doing wrong? What is still required? Where are we lagging? What do we need in our response to this, in our reactions to this?
I read a very interesting statistic a few days ago. 90% of India's population makes enough money to just about pay for their immediate needs, the basics of living. And less than 2 lakh people earn more than 2 crores a year. And I think that tells you a lot. It's a very revealing indication of the inequality that we're living with. And that inequality hits at a very different level when you are exposed to the elements in the way in which most people in our country are. So we're talking about farmers, we're talking about daily wage workers, we're talking about laborers, we're talking about people who sweep our streets, who are working in factories and construction sites. It's very tough for them already, and it's only going to get worse.
So are we, with our responses, Archana, are we risking deepening inequalities instead of building resilience?
Yeah, I feel that, as I was saying, that if the policy doesn't have the necessary stakeholders on board, then we are actually going in a vicious circle. And even if our climate adaptation measures will be weakened if the climate mitigation measures are not taken properly.
And are not localized. Yes. Because I feel mitigation is only possible when there's a localized plan and solution in place. There's a lot of language that is used everywhere in the world right now, which gives you the sense that people think that one model will fit all. That's not going to be the case, because I think every region has its own challenges and will require very different and unique solutions. Of course, there are certain things that will work for everyone. Like, it will work to protect the rights of indigenous communities,
because it will ensure that more forests will be secure. But there are many other things which I'm sure Archana will add to.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick example of my experience is when I visited communities. One of the communities said that they were not happy with the plantation of fruit trees near their village, and this is very specific in context based example. And when I asked them that what and why are they not happy with the plant based fruit based plants, and they shared that if they grow this fruit jackfruit trees or mango trees, then wild boars and animals will come and destroy their agriculture crops. And this also led me to a surprise and realization that they wanted sal trees to be planted instead of the fruit trees. So now plantation is seen and is proposed as climate mitigation, but here the major crux was not consultation and free prior informed consent of indigenous people or local communities, rural communities, and that is where the gap is.
The solutions are seen as top heavy, trickling down, not in taken with consultation with the local communities on the ground who would know best about what they require.
And not only that, I think there's a very big gap between policy and implementation. And I think one of the reasons why we fail at implementation is because of this as well. Because, I mean, yes, there may be some part of it that requires more will, but it will have to be a process of partnership. Let me give you an example. When we talk about urban greening, what is stopping us from involving every municipal school in the country to start growing a vegetable garden and fruit-bearing trees in their compounds? What is stopping us? The benefits are aplenty, right? It will improve the mental health of the children. It will help them to revere and worship and discover what it means to grow food. It will improve their interpersonal relationships. It will cool their school and their classrooms. And it has many more benefits. What is stopping us from doing this? I think where there are examples of mitigation and they've worked, I think we need to start partnering with each other and finding ways to implement the success stories, and of course find ways to implement them in a way which, like Archana said, are in consultation with the locals of the community, or even the people who are supposed to kind of benefit from it, because that's what makes all the difference. I'm going to share a story about Jawai in Rajasthan once you're done with your next question.
Go ahead.
Or maybe it's connected to your question, I don't know.
No, I'm actually wanting to push you both a little bit further on this because I'm trained as an Indian television journalist and you know what they're like or we're like. Let me ask you this. So climate change is seen as a current problem, right? Or a man-made or exacerbated by man problem. It's a problem of the future, it's a problem of the present and the future. So then can we find solutions to this global, to this mega, multifaceted, futuristic problem in the past? Can you, if you talk about local, can the local actually provide, can you have indigenous technologies and traditional wisdoms providing a solution for such a gigantic problem?
I think yes, because I think there are two things which needs to be understood. Scale, absolutely, but at the same time also there are existing practices and solutions which is being practiced over the period of time, and also now revisiting and adapting to the current changes. It's extremely important for us as a collective to be having a safe space of building solidarity and identifying what are those solutions, whether it is youth-led solutions or whether it is indigenous or community-led solution. Having said that, I feel that climate finance and philanthropy both needs to go a little more beyond, because as per the study we did, out of the 3% of the climate philanthropy, only 0.76% goes to young people, and that too, if we see in a broader scale, it goes to mostly towards global north and barely to global south. So we need to have more funding supported to youth-led initiatives And at the same time, if I talk about indigenous perspective, only 1% of the climate finance goes to them. So it's there. And then the scale bit is like, it's very the ongoing debate of large scale and small scale. I truly believe that if we talk about only large scale, the question here comes, who is able to access that and who is practicing the solution on ground? And that is why I feel like a small scale solution in a very systematic approach where it is winding and weaving in a large scale approach can make a difference, because we need to see in a long term basis in terms of accessibility also.
Wow.
Jawai, you want to tell us about Jawai?
Yeah, my response to these questions always comes from a place of being first a mother and then everything else, right? And it's really hard being a climate activist right now. But just feeding off what Archana said, I think that the crisis is enormous. You're absolutely right. And can we fix it? The science says we can. The science says we still have a window to contain the temperature rise. But it's a very small sliver of space. And if we don't really mobilize and accelerate actions, we are going to miss that tiny spot of light, right? And that's terrifying, because that means that, our children, my children are going to grow up in extremely harsh environments and circumstances, and there's going to be all kinds of issues: disease, food scarcity, unbearable weather conditions to play sport in or live and work in, and it's going to have all kinds of compounding effects. And we come from a place of privilege, we think we may be able to escape it, but the fact is that nobody is escaping this. No one. And I think the recent fires in LA and all else that's happening over the world, in Europe, the flash floods, all of those are very harsh and cruel indicators and reminders that every single person who thought they could postpone action has to seriously wake up and recognize the fact that action cannot be postponed any longer, because only we will suffer if we do. Now, my biggest concern is that there is a very small number of people that control the world's economy, that controls the way the world is doing business, the way we're producing, the way we are manufacturing, the way we are advertising, so the way we are promoting consumption. And why is it so hard for us, civil society, governments, large organizations, to get through to this very small number of people? Yes, it's a small number of people that controls 90% of the world's money. And that is the level of power, and maybe that is the level of, inequality we're looking at. So there are few people who've colonized our planet, and the rest of us are left scrambling to fix the problem. So I think multiple things need to happen. One, as a mother, I have to keep reinforcing and reminding my children that they're a part of nature, and encourage them to spend time in nature. And I think then nature does her work. It just builds the relationship that is required, because it has to be a really broken, dysfunctional relationship with nature that has led us down this path. And simultaneously, what are the immediate solutions? What can I do in my neighborhood? What can I do in my backyard? What can I do within my home? What can I do within my community? Can I segregate waste? Can I plant more trees? Can I gift, replace material gifts with experiences that support local communities, that kind of encourage ecotourism? Can I work with the local municipal corporation to help them implement the policies that they've been struggling to get off the ground? Can I work with the municipal schools to grow vegetable gardens? What are the things that I can do as an individual today, now? That's one way of tackling the issue and not feeling altogether helpless and overwhelmed. And then simultaneously, I think it also matters most to support these incredible young people who are innovating, who are finding solutions, who are coming up with the most incredible ideas to solve very big problems. They need support, financial support, they need emotional support, and they need our encouragement. So that's something I think we can even do again as individuals, which I feel great pride in doing. And then it is also about engaging with policymakers or questioning policymakers in government and helping them recognize the urgency with which they need to start addressing these issues. And then, of course, hopefully one day we'll get through those 9, 10
1%.
people. Yeah, that 1%. 10 people actually. I'm not exaggerating. I'm sure some people are nodding in the room because they know who these 10 people are.
Supporting young people, I'll get to that, but I think the natural segue, this is a natural segue to my next question, because Archana, you talked about safe spaces, the issue of funding. You spoke about being a mother and how this is such a difficult time to be an activist or someone who speaks for our nature and our futures. So we're sitting on a ticking time bomb, and now add to this conundrum, we have a president like Donald Trump who doesn't believe that climate change is a thing. He's already reversed course on many climate policies. He's trying to remove the term climate change from government documents. He's trying to freeze climate funding. The US has already pulled out of the Paris Agreement. In the midst of all of this, in this context, do you feel a sense of despair?
I feel a sense of horror. It's a horror show. The world is a horror show right
both
now.
of you have spent your entire lives actually speaking about this, both at an individual level first, in your own personal lives, and then on larger scales in your professional lives. In that context,
No,
it
it is a
feel
horror
like
show.
we're losing all the work that you've
No.
slipping away in a
No,
sense?
because I think that communication has never been more powerful than it is right now. And I feel that a lot of people who know better are mobilizing, are working together, are partnering with each other, and really kind of creating very, very strong support systems. And, are working with people in government who want to make a difference. Because there's many times when people in government want to do good, they want to do what's right, but the politicians of the time don't allow them. And that's where people support matters. That's when it truly makes a difference, when we rise and we question or we demand answers and we give support to those people working in government, those policymakers who are trying to get the work implemented on the ground. So I think we're surrounded by glimmers of hope, but what truly offers me extraordinary strength is the young people across the world and the organizations that are working with each other now. Because I think as an SDGs advocate, one of the things that I get exposure to a lot is, the partnerships that are being formed across the world and in India. I mean, like what we're doing today, right now, this is a result of partnerships. And I'm pretty certain that the engagement that has happened here through the day will create some very interesting opportunities for people to make impact.
So what advice would you give to young community leaders, young activists today who may not be able to hear what you've just said, but maybe feeling a sense of despair?
What do you feel, Archana? You've heard me speak. I've always reached out to you.
I think it's so powerful to be sharing stage with Dia, because sometimes, even if people are not sitting together, but knowing someone is there for you and there for the community means so much. And Dia has been one of those person, like we know she is such supportive with young people in her own different unique ways. So that distant love which we know is so strong, is something which binds us all together, and that is something which I would also like to say and draw from the principles we have proposed as Indigenous people and local communities of Asia in our report. Is it's very difficult. It's like it has huge impact on the mental health of young people, those who are in this space. In addition to how climate crisis is impacting, how global heat is impacting, and what just holds us together and is just hope is deep sense of love, kindness, and solidarity. This is something which I truly believe, try to practice even on difficult days, but that is what is keeps us going. And I would just like to quickly...
We find each other. I think that's what keeps us sane and
Yes.
keeps us going.
And
Climate anxiety is real,
And it's a growing issue, especially with the young.
and it's not talked about enough even in school.
No, it isn't.
But Archana, you touched upon the issue of funding. How is it that, like you said, because many movements, climate movements the world over, are led by the youth, because they're the ones who have the most at stake and they're the ones who are going to spend the most time on this planet, while the policies aren't being made by
And they
them.
have the least representation
Yes.
at the decision-making tables.
So talk about, explain to us this problem, articulate for us why it's important that, and how do we change the systems to make sure that funding reaches the youth?
I will just share one of my experience. So we have recently curated Youth Climate Justice Fund. One of our intention of curating Youth Climate Justice Fund is that youth was not treated as one of the theme also to give funding, and or as part of the climate finance or climate philanthropy. And one of the key thing which we see or we have witnessed is that institutional mechanism to access, like are we enough to write the grant application? Can we have that amount of grant? Are we able to access it? Can we do the auditing and budgeting? All of these very granular things, and I think it's extremely important that from our end as young people also we learn, which we are learning, but I think from the other end it is important to make processes youth oriented and taking youth on the process, which also a lot of my friends say that if we are in this climate philanthropic spaces, it is important to broaden the slice of the cake and not try to share the cake with everybody, because we know there's a bigger cake there and we all need access to. So I feel we need direct access to funding ecosystem. We need capacity building and support where we all can learn, like you all, the funding ecosystem can learn from us, like how to make youth friendly processes. We will learn from you on your challenges, how we can equip ourselves better. And that is something which I feel is extremely important in terms of how can we access. But I also feel that it's really important to have small grants also to be accessible to young people, because there's this brief example I would like to say, and this was, I was asking people funding for people participating in the COP, and that is when they said that how can we know that this person is credible to support them to go to COP, because they do not have online presence. And I was like, because I am recommending. And that time I was as part of the youth advisory group of Secretary General. And these issues of we need people be on website or have their online presence, which is also at times not safe in the current scenario across the spaces we see.
Well, the reality is on the ground. Most of us would never have fathomed this. But in terms of the larger picture of funding overall, right, I'm actually going to open this up for questions from the audience, because I'm sure a lot of you will have some. So you know how it works. You can ask your question, you can scan the QR code on your badge, you can start sending them in, and then we'll try and open this up. But talking about funding overall, right, you've been at many UN climate summits. That funding seems like it could be freezing or at least narrowing down. Bill Gates, for example, I think has just resigned himself to not doing anything for the next 4 years. Donald Trump is draining out all of the wokeness out of America. So we I don't think we're going to be able to depend on billionaires now to come and solve any of these issues with their funding. So what happens in that context?
Then we have to wisen up and start building and creating and working differently. Because when we talk about heat wave mitigation or climate mitigation, and yes, it does require finance, but I think there are large sections of our society in India that are willing to address the issues and willing to kind of adapt and bring the changes that are necessary. For instance, this coalition of the UN, UNEP worked on something very specific in India, which is the Cool Coalition. Okay, it's one designated coordinating mechanism for delivering the UN SDG's call for action, which is heat wave mitigation. And UNEP's Cool Coalition is a leading global action on sustainable cooling, with a goal of cutting cooling related emissions by 68% by 2050, right? And they're pushing for a triple strategy. Now, the point is that this is an example for the world. One country can initiate it. People will come together. It will happen. We've created the World Solar Alliance. There's many things that we are willing to kind of initiate and work on. And I think with more awareness generation amongst those who are kind of leading industries and enterprises and are kind of mobilizing our economy and are really kind of deciding what direction we are moving in, with their awareness and their action, I believe that we can see a lot more change. Let me take the example of, say, the real estate business, right? Most citizens kind of look at the real estate industry and say, these guys are the worst, they're the rogues, right? They're the ones who are bribing everyone, they're the ones who are like,
permits, all of that.
They're flouting all kinds of, permits, they're doing all kinds of wrong things. But we're beginning to see examples of truly powerful builders making better choices. And they're taking pride in doing that and leading the way. So I'm just saying that maybe we don't have to depend entirely on some other part of the world to send us money to help us work on our own conscience.
This could perhaps be that moment we need to shift the perspective. As Rajan Mehta says, this could be an opportunity for countries like India. We've talked about how the system so far
you can say we're the youngest population in the world. We are going to be hit the hardest. We have to solve the problems locally, efficiently, and most likely by ourselves, and set an example for the rest of the world to follow.
Okay, we have
because we also have so much knowledge, which is not just indigenous but is historical. We've known better. We've always known better.
We must talk about the issue of women, and somebody's raised that, saying women in climate-hit areas face caregiving burdens, household duties, gender-based violence. How can policies and resilience efforts address these intersecting challenges and amplify women's voices?
The other day I told somebody that heat waves and climate change impact women the most. And this person looked at me and said, why is it always about the women? Yeah, most people think like that. So I said, think about this. There are parts of our country where women spend 180 days of the year collecting water. They are the primary caregivers of the family. They're the ones who are working in the fields. They're the ones who are cooking their meals at home. And they are the ones who are collecting the water. So, I'm sorry, but more and more of us have to start to recognize that climate-hit areas affect and impact women and children the most. Children drop out of schools, they don't have access to clean air or fresh drinking water. The heat causes all kinds of other illnesses and impediments. And this is not just about rural India. These are realities within urban India as well.
How do we know of, have we thought of policies that address these challenges and policies that can amplify women's voices?
I'm not I'm not aware of them. Are you aware of any of them, Archana?
I think
Specifically address women in climate?
it's not specifically in terms of climate, but I would like to see its interlinkages. I think one of the key thing is like if we talk about global heat and cooling and summer and women is like for indigenous communities and local communities. Summertime is a major source of livelihood because it's the time of forest-based livelihood. And that is the seasonal time when you collect mahua, tendu, and all of these, and which serves as a source of income for to send the children to the school and to also send all of these. There is minimum support price for that, like in which the communities can sell. But often the major challenge is storage of those forest-based livelihood. So I also feel that now, given the heat and impacts of climate-induced is having in terms of the storage issues, I feel when we are also having minimum support price for forest-based livelihood, how do we ensure also that the storage support is also given, and how there is also like compensation when there is loss of these livelihood happens because of unseasonal rain. So I am seeing it from a lens of how those situations can be integrated in the existing policies and taken into consideration.
If climate has become a part of child's rights issues only in the last 5 years. I've started seeing reports emerging now. And I remember 15 years ago asking some child's rights organizations, why aren't you incorporating climate and environmental justice as a part of child's rights? I don't think so. I think where we really lagged behind is collaboration. We are not, even within like governments. I remember we had this one meeting at the UNEP office, and it was the first time that the various agencies connected to the environment were meeting for the first time.
So there's a question that's close to this. How can we create transparent, inclusive platforms that foster trust between the government and the public while reducing hostility? You've all worked, you've had to, you've tried not to, I'm sure, work with government agencies, work with global agencies. In your opinion, how does one lead to a situation? How can one create a situation that fosters trust? Because we're all in this together.
Yeah.
One would think that it would be normal that we have to trust each
I think it depends on the issue, and it depends on what state
and what's at stake.
and what's at stake.
Fossil fuels.
I try and engage with everyone with humility and love and empathy, and I've realized that sometimes it's important to just appease and go. And really, egos ride very high. It's remarkable how high some egos can ride. So sometimes it's just about that. Being able to get through to somebody in government sometimes just means saying so 25 times.
As I was referring to the earlier principles of engaging with young people, which we curated as part of the Asia Indigenous Peoples and Local Communities, one of the key things is in the principle is like youth organizing is intergenerational, and I truly believe at like how this panel is as well, that it's important to have that willingness to learn from each other, which I feel is difficult at times to see in people not wanting to learn, but also not understanding that young people have something to offer. The other thing which I truly believe, and I truly believe, is leaders create more leaders. We have to have that mindset and openness of like how we can create a second line generation of leaders and create more spaces where we have more leaders. And I have also learned from my experience is that young people learn by leading, and allies support by trusting young people. And that is something which I truly believe is like we want you to trust us. And youth safety is a shared duty, and I think how can we have an inclusive space is like if everyone thinks how can we make a safe space, and this is something which I really hold close to my heart, because one of the things which I really felt when I was part of the youth advisory group is extremely safe, because Secretary General himself creates space of being able to listen anything from us, no matter how difficult we say or how difficultly we question him. To have that ability to absorb what young people are saying is something which I feel is truly important. And at the end, I would say that solidarity is sacred and everyone is important, and how we can come together to build that sacred and strong solidarity.
We're down to 6 minutes, so we're going to pass the mics around with this gentleman first. Perhaps we can take 3 questions at a time, because we don't have. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yes, you made a point that billionaires are not doing well, but Vantara project has been created, and the Prime Minister was also promoting that. So, what are your views on that? Because is it a good example or a bad example? Because and they are also promoting nature-based solutions, which can basically mean replacing your nature. I mean, nature asset, with artificial, things. So, is it something positive, or so? What's your opinion on that? Thanks.
Yeah. We're talking about the climate justice, talking about various vulnerable groups, women, children, and various people. I'm just wondering, all the human beings in this life constitute about 0.01%. So, who will voice the climate change impacts on the rest of the life in the
We have people, you're talking about other species.
Yeah, I mean, the human constitute only 0.01%. So, and they are a vulnerable group among the children, old people, senior citizens. But somebody needs to voice on the 99.99%, and they are also getting impact on climate change, negative impact.
Of course.
So, if that their voice is being heard.
Well, if they had votes, then everything would change, no?
Yeah, I mean that's it. If you why
You've answered your question, sir.
Go ahead now. Yes.
Yes, there's Yuva. For one example is Yuva. There are many other organizations, maybe other platforms now. There are at regional, central, all levels where this is happening. It's wonderful to see. And there's incredible work happening. Young people are doing extraordinary work. Any more questions?
There's a young lady at the back. You just pass the mic around.
Thank you. So, ma'am gave some amazing insights about involvement of women in climate change. So, since we were talking about rising heat, so what are your inputs or insights about how women are impacted by heat? Plus, if there are any infrastructure based or any other solutions that we generate for mitigating these heat, how is there still gender discrimination that is associated with it, and how are women, how does the accessibility of women to those kinds of solutions, is it anyway hampered, or what is their status in it? Because it might vary in urban and rural scenarios, or poor or rich scenarios, or the gender disparities. So what's your take on it?
Those are many questions. Ashna, you want to answer any?
I think one of the key thing which I feel, we are short on time, so I'll not go and explain like what are the women-led practices. A brief is like Thinga Pali. Thinga means stick, Pali means turn. So there are community-led practices where women have taken leadership in protecting the forest. But they have been doing it even at the cost of displacement or migration. So how we can recognize their those practices, and in terms of also securing the tenure. At the same time, I also feel like when we talk about forest fires, women are in the front lines of making sure that those forest fires are monitored. And this is the good practices which they are doing in different states and regions. When it comes to the impact, again, it is a very ironical thing. Like, women are doing so much, but they are the ones who are being affected. So I think it's also not only in terms of what solution needs to come in, it's important to acknowledge the dynamics of this irony of how women leadership needs to be prioritized in the policy making spaces. Can we have more women leadership? Can we have, if we talk about Panchayati Raj institutions, Gram Sabhas, can we engage with women on those levels? So this is something which I would like to say. And briefly, in terms of the youth, there are so many groups, but I would like to do a little shout out to my youth groups. Is Heat Wave Action Coalition, which has been doing amazing work, and they were the one with, when it was not a thing, they had started engaging and organizing young people. So there are a lot of young people who are doing thematic work in terms of climate, but also like in general taking climate justice narrative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dinner was supposed to start at 7:30. We're down to a minute, so unfortunately we have to wrap. But if I could end by asking Dia, and I think I'm going to steal this question for myself, slightly on a personal note. You're a mother. You mentioned that many times, and that kind of forms who you are and the decisions you make. Can you just, as parents, as grandparents here who may be listening, what do we need to do, or what do you do in your parenting? Anything that you can share with us that we can perhaps learn from, because being a parent in India today, somehow in affluent India today, means giving your child everything they want. So it's a lot of consumption. Birthday parties are like mini parties. What can we take away from leading by example for our kids?
Thanks for that question. I think we don't really usually connect overconsumptive, wasteful behaviors with heat. So it's a great thing that we're ending this one with that. So yes, as a parent, I think one of the most important things that I try and to be mindful about is ensuring that I'm raising children who don't associate happiness and joy with material gain, who have value for experiences, and that there is a very basic understanding that we don't waste and that we need to be grateful for the resources that we have. I always share this very simple practice that I started with my little boy when he was 6 months old or 7 months old, and he started eating solid food. After he was given his meal, I would say, "Thank you, Farmer. Thank you, Mama Earth. And thank you to the person who cooked his meal." And he does it on his own now. After every meal, he thanks the farmer, he thanks Mama Earth. And after every bath, he thanks water, and he thanks Mama Earth for the water. Each of you in this room has the wisdom to know why this is so essential. But I think the point is that we need more people to understand and make that connection, and start raising children and grandchildren who have a deeper connection with the earth, and recognize that all of life is entirely dependent on the health of the planet. And without a healthy living system, we don't stand a chance. We don't stand a future. And quite frankly, somebody wrote this line, it's very powerful, but the rich who are getting richer will hopefully very soon discover that they're not going to be able to eat money or breathe it. So it's about time we change ourselves and tap into our roots and go back to the ancient wisdom that has always guided us, whether it's, the tribes or people who are described as indigenous communities, but just people who've lived close to the land and lived with the earth, and who recognize that everything that we hope for and could possibly ever hope for comes from the earth. And so we must love her and protect her.
Thank you all. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to share that Javai example, but I think you've wrapped
I want to
up
share
today's
one very
session
important
beautifully.
thing.
Please go ahead.
I don't want to lose the opportunity to share some very important work that UNEP in India is doing on a cooling program. And because this is what it is, I think it's important everybody knows. India, as we know, is at the center of the extreme heat crisis. It's also the most at-risk country for heat-related impacts and will be the world's largest consumer of cooling by 2050. India is leading the way with the India Cooling Action Plan, ICAP. In fact, many of your answers, who's the young lady who asked the questions at the back? Look up ICAP, many of your questions will be answered there, right? The actions laid out in ICAP will enhance India's resilience to heat waves and improve thermal comfort for millions while ensuring affordability. Because I think what is at the center of mitigation and the scale at which we need to work on it is also making cooling accessible to everyone and to ensure that cooling is not just accessible, but the cooling is sustainable and inclusive.
Thank you so much. A lot of food for thought today. On that note, let's head out for dinner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to both our distinguished speaker and our moderator for the same. I would request all three of you if you could just step forward for a group photo op. All three of you, please.